Welcome to Let's Weave Beads. In this video I will be working with diamond number 5 of our star and with the rectangle cross weave. I'm going to do this one slightly different from the previous videos. What I'm going to do is show you the different parts of the stitch. The first will be to do row 1 and the first 2 rectangles of row 2. So for row 1, when doing the cross weave, I add these 2 beads first. You can add them in any order. It will be important to keep track of what order you add them if they happen to be different colors. Here they are the same color, so we will add them. They can be added to either string. Now the next 2 beads I will add one to the left and one to the right, and of course here is where you want to, if these are different colors, you want to make sure that you're matching your left and your right string up to them. For this piece they are both black, so we have a black and a black, and then these 2 will add to either string, and again, depending on if any of these colors are different, you will want to make sure you add them in the correct order depending on which string you decide to add them to. Both of these are black, so like I said, you can add them to any string. And then you take the other string and you cross, entering from the opposite direction. And then you let that come down. And then you should check that to your pattern, should there be any different colors, to make sure that you do have all 6 beads correct. Then once you have done that, you can pretty much choose either string. Like I said, if this is different, you will want to make sure whichever string you choose, you add the correct beads according to the design. So I am going to choose one string. And as these are all the same, I'm going to add these here first. You start with the innermost bead and you work your way to the outside and then back into the inside towards the side of your previous row. So these are all black, so we'll add 6 black. Let that drop down. Then you want to find that first bead that you added and go through it in the same direction, which means away from your previous row. And there we have our previous row and our first rectangle. Now on this one, it's a little hard sometimes to see which one is the previous row. One easy way to know is see these are 2 and this is 1. So you know that the 1 is your current row and the 2 is your previous row. So you want the string coming away from your previous row or outside of the 1. And you're going to add to it starting with the bead closest to it and going to the other beads. You're going to add 3, and we want a black followed by 2 blue. Now the first 2 beads you let drop, and the third bead you cross with your other string, entering from the opposite direction. Now we have row 1 and the beginning of row 2. At this point, like I said, it's always good to double check your pattern to make sure that you have the start correct and that it matches up. And then from here on out, it'll be a little bit easier to keep track of where you are. Now we have done the row 1 and the first 2 rectangles of row 2, and the next part is ending a row and starting a new one, but going from an increase, which means this row is longer than the previous one, to an increase, which means your new row is longer than the one you are currently on. So we're going from an increase to an increase. So when you are doing that, you want the string that's coming in towards your previous row, and you're going to add your bead starting on the side of your previous row. You'll add the first 3, which in this case are all blue, and let them drop. Then the next 2, which are black, you take and cross the other string. And there you have the last bead of the last rectangle of this row. And you want to start your new row, which is an increase. You want to start with this bead here, the inner bead, and you want to go out and then end on the side closest to your previous row. So in this case we need a blue followed by 4 blacks, and then we add a blue. Then you want to find that first bead you just added, and you want to go through it in the same direction. That means away from your previous rows. And there you have added the first bead of your new row. So that is how you end a row and start a new one when going from an increase to an increase. Now we're going to continue our row by adding rectangles. Now the first thing you want to do, no, actually this one it's already done. So you're connected here with the string closest to your previous row, and you want to take the string coming away from your previous row, and you're going to add your beads starting with the outer 2 and then the inner 1. So you'll add 3, in this case they are all blue. And that is adding a rectangle. Now because the previous rectangle was already attached, I'm going to show you a set with attaching. What you want to do is when you're adding a new rectangle to your row, you first go through the 2 beads on the previous row with the string coming in towards the previous row. Then, just like before on the other string, you'll add your 3 beads. And the last one you will cross with your other string. And that is how you add your rectangles to your row. Now we're going to jump ahead. And the next part of the weave is ending a row and starting a new one. But this is when you are going from an increase down to a decrease. Now with the diamonds, this happens with the center row, your longest one. At the end of it, you will go from an increase down to a decrease. Now this is slightly different from before because you will add these beads in the opposite direction. You'll take the string that's coming away from the previous row, and you'll start with the 2 outer beads and go towards the 2 beads closest to your previous row. In this case, they're all black. Oops, I wrote a 6. This is 5. Sorry, I know I looked wrong. Okay, so 5 beads. And then you see where your string is coming out. You go through that bead so it's coming out on the same side. And there you've ended your longest row. Now, in order to get in position for your new row, you want to take the string that's coming in towards your previous row and go down through that previous rectangle, and you want to go through all 5 beads. So you want to go through the 2 innermost beads, then that center one, and then the 2 outer beads. And then you want to take your other string and you want to go through those 2 same outer beads so that your strings are coming out on each side of that set of beads. And then you will take the string that's coming towards the end of your row and you'll add your 4 beads, starting with the one on the outermost. You let the first 3 drop, and the 4th one you will cross with the other string. And that is how you end your longest row and begin a row that is shorter, a decrease. Now the next part is when you take a row that's shorter, a decrease, and you go to a decrease. So we're going to end a row that is shorter and go to a row that is shorter. So here's our string. You'll take the, unlike when you're adding a rectangle, you will not go through the 2 beads that would connect. You leave this string alone, the one coming in towards your previous row. That one you're going to leave alone for now. You're going to take the string coming away from your previous row, as usual, and add your 3 beads. But this time you let all 3 drop. Then you take the string you added your beads to and you go through these 2 connecting beads, but you want to go towards your previous rectangle. Then you go through that bead your other string is coming out of, and now both your strings are coming out that bead. So you want to take the one coming in towards your previous row and go through these 5 so that you are coming through out these 2 outer beads. And then you'll go through the 2 outer beads. And then you'll take the other string and you'll also go through those 2 same beads so that your string's coming out on both sides of those 2 beads. Then you take the one coming towards the end of your row and you add your 4 beads. We need 3 whites and a black, and then you take your other string and you cross it, and there you have ended a row on a decrease and started a new row on a decrease. Now the last thing I want to show you is adding the last rectangle. Now this is slightly different only because of the way that I secure my string. So for this, you actually won't use the string coming in towards your previous rows, not until you're ready to secure it. So you are done with this string for the last part of your piece. So you take the string that's coming away from your previous row and add your 3 beads just like normal when you're ending a decrease. And then you'll go through the 2 beads going towards your previous rectangle and out, so both strings are going through that center bead. And then, as usual, just working with the one coming away from your previous rows, you'll go through those 2 center beads. And at this point, you can get confused as to where you are. So you'll want to match it up to your pattern. In this case, we are in this direction. So then you know your string is coming out the top, so you want to add the top bead and then the other 2. So we need a white and 3 blacks. And then you'll find, because they will move around and you'll get confused, so make sure you find the 2 beads that your string is coming out of. Go through both beads. And now you've added the last row. So what I do is I come through this center bead so that both of my strings are now facing the same direction. And then I secure them separately, because if you try to secure them together, you might run into a area where there's too much string in a bead, so I like to do them separately. So this one, I will go away from the center, because here's the center. We want to do this one down on this side, and then this one doing the same thing down on this side. So securing the bead, we just go through a 2, and then down through a 1, and then through the next 2, going straight down, and then through the 1, and then the next 2, and then I come back, because I like to do a full circle at the end of my securing. Alright, that bead's not going to let me go through at the moment, so I'm going to cross to the other side. Now this is not as big a deal if you're using needles. This is more of a non-needle problem, so then it let me go through this time. Sometimes if you go to the other side it works. And then I go back through the previous 2 beads. And then I clip off the excess and repeat it for the other string. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope that you'll find this video useful. I will put in the description minutes so that you can find the different parts as you need them, should you run into trouble on any of the different parts. Hope to see you in the next videos, and happy beading!